Hi everyone, Mo here, and welcome to another Deck Guides for Dummies episode. In this video, we're going to be going over Shurima Overwhelm. So this is a deck that I'm very familiar with and I've played a lot of. I got the original idea and the original deck from Rex, and I've just changed it here and there. I used this deck to actually hit Masters this season, and I'm going to be bringing this deck to the seasonal tournament to put $10,000 on the line. So, I obviously really like the deck and think the deck is very good right now. Especially right now in this meta where Thresh, Nasus, and Trundle Lissandra Control are the most played decks in both tournaments and ladder. This deck is amazing for that. It's the best deck to consistently beat Thresh Nasus with, and it has a really good win rate against the Freljord Shadow Isle control decks as well, like your Trundle Lissandra Controls and the Anivia players. So because of that, this deck is actually super well positioned. So I really like it. There's some spice in here, and I can't wait to show you guys and tell you how to play it. So before we get into the video, I want to let you guys know that 80% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and click the subscribe button, it helps me out so much with the YouTube algorithm, as well as go over to my Twitch channel and follow me on Twitch. I stream on there almost every single day, put out content, answer questions, make deck guides like this one. I actually made the first half of this deck guide live on Twitch, so if you want access to all of these videos before they get posted, make sure to go head over to Twitch. So that's it for the intro. Let's get into the video. Alright, so now we're going to go over each card in the deck and talk about the purpose of why it's in the deck and what it does for the deck. So we'll just start at the top and go to the bottom like normal. So we'll start with Exhaust. So this is the main reason why you play Freljord Shurima instead of like Freljord Noxus or Freljord Targon, all those other Overwhelm styles. The reason why Shurima and Freljord is the best Overwhelm style is because you get all of these vulnerable cards. On top of, you get, we'll get to it later, but Ruin Runner. So these just have the best Overwhelm units, as well as the best support spells with things like Exhaust, Rockhopper, Ruthless Predator, by giving things vulnerable, which is really, really good, and really what the Overwhelm archetype needed as a whole to just pop off as a archetype and as a deck style in general. So that's why I play Exhaust. It's a really good combat trick. It's good for really just any of your overall units to pull. It's also just good to make good trades early on if you need to with like an Omen Hawk. If your opponent plays a 2-1 and you have an Omen Hawk against aggro decks, you just need to clear the board early, then you can just exhaust the 2-1, pull it in with Omen Hawk, and you're chilling, and you come out with an Omen Hawk on top. Now, going to Omen Hawk. So, to Omen Hawk, I just play this because it makes your units a little bit bigger. It's really nice to have some sort of early game plan against aggro. Aggro is, in fact, your weakest point. It's the hardest counter to your deck. It's the really wide, really aggressive swarm aggro that tries to, like, kill you on turn 3, essentially. Because you only play 2 1-drops, you play very few 2-drops and 3-drops. It's really hard.
Subscribed.
Thanks, Loader. It's really hard to compete with the aggro-style decks for board presence, and you kind of just get ran over and deaded. After that, we play Shapestone. We play 2 Shapestone. That's just because it's a really cheap combat trick. You play 2 Rockhoppers. You can maybe take out Shapestone if you prefer. But I'm playing only Rockhopper as your only, like, landmark style. And you could, instead of playing Ice Shard, which we'll get to in a minute, play like Preservarium, because that gives you card draw and it is another landmark to trigger a Shapestone. But for now, I'm playing Shapestone just because it's nice, but you can easily trade this out with like any other combat trick. We play Rockhopper. Rockhopper is actually one of the best cards in Shurima. It is Omega overlooked. When Fiora Shin was really popular, this card, this 2-mana common unit, would single-handedly win you that matchup, because it forced them to play 2 turns off curve, because they could never play their champion when they needed to. So against other mid-range decks, this card is MVP. Against Shadow Isles, this card is poo-poo. You never want this card against a Shadow Isle control deck, but you always want this card when you're against other like mid-range style decks, because it just gives you a huge advantage and forces them to play really awkwardly and really off curve most of the time, and that's good for you. I play 1 Ruthless Predator, just because it's good as a spell. It gives a unit big, gives another enemy vulnerable, so it makes your trades good for your Overwhelm units like Renekton and all these big boys down here. You could easily, instead of playing 2 Omen Hawk, just play 3 Ruthless Predators, but I like the Omen Hawks. Ruthless Fighter, because it's a 2-mana Overwhelm unit with Tough, it's really good. Troll Champ, because it's just a really good combat trick. So Ice Shard is really niche, and I like it. It's actually really, really good against aggro decks, and that's your worst matchup is the like Spider aggros and the Discord aggros. And it's really, really good against Thresh Nasus, which is like the most popular and probably best ladder deck at the moment. It's by far the most popular tournament deck. It's going to be the most popular deck at Seasonal coming up. So this card single-handedly won me. I can, off the top of my head, I remember 3 matches tonight that Ice Shard just won me against Thresh Nasus because they went play, you know, a Dune Keeper on 1, play the Fading Icon guy on turn 2, turn 3, play Caretaker to try and push, you know, a bunch of damage. You Ice Shard them. It's essentially 3 mana Ruination, and you just win the game. Against other mid-range decks, you can use Ice Shard to push more damage with Overwhelm because it deals 1 damage to everything. So it deals 1 damage to the enemy blockers. So because it's dealing 1 damage to the blockers, that's 1 more point of Overwhelm coming across. This card is really, really good, and I think it's going to push Overwhelm kind of to the top. And it's really, really underrated. No one's really done this before. I'm kind of the only person playing Ice Shard in my Overwhelm deck. And I can just tell you that even though it looks kind of weird, if you think about it, Ice Shard is actually just cracked in Overwhelm. And the very, very worst, it's just 3 mana, deal 1 damage to your opponent, deal 1 damage to yourself. So it can give you like the 1 point of reach that you need. Up next is Xenotype Researcher. So this takes the spot of the Yeti Maker of Avarosan Trapper. So you can just as easily play Avarosan Trapper in this spot. But I like to high roll, so I play Xenotype Researchers because sometimes it feels bad playing a Trapper on like turn 3 or turn 4. Or turn, like, after that, and being like, man, I'm gonna stifle my draws here, because I know I'm drawing a Yeti when I really, really want to be drawing a Battle Fury, or I really need to be drawing that Ice Shard, or that Troll Chain, or some type of spell like that. It can feel bad sometimes, so that's why I like I like Researchers, because there are also just some nutty high roll moments where, like, you play Xenotype on 3, you give a Renekton in your deck +3/+3, and you immediately draw it. So you're playing a 7/7 Overwhelm unit on turn 4. So I just like it for the high roll potential. If you want a more like consistent style card, but it has a little bit of a downside, you can just play Avarosan Trapper, and that's just the more normal thing to do, and that's perfectly fine. Next we have Renekton, because big Overwhelm unit is good. You'll find a theme coming up here. Alpha Wildclaw, big Overwhelm unit is good. Sejuani, big Overwhelm unit is good, but this also frostbites and gives vulnerable, so that's really nice. It can be played on defense and offense. And then Yeti, because it's a 4 mana 5/5 Overwhelm, which is good. And then 3 Battle Fury, because you like winning the game. And this card helps you win the game. If you put a Battle Fury on a Ruin Runner, that's kind of just the game. I actually skipped over Ruin Runner because I want to talk about this card specifically. This card is absolutely crazy. It's a 5 mana 6/4 Spell Shield Overwhelm unit. This card single-handedly wins you so many matchups. If you just go like, play Ruin Runner on 5, untap, Battle Fury on 6 on your Ruin Runner, that's 14 damage that your opponent can't stop. Because they can't Frostbite it. And they can't, like, you know, Vengeance it well without having to spend 9 mana. So they have to have Vengeance and Vile Feast mana open. And this card just carries your control matchups. It carries your Targon matchups. This card is just absolutely crazy. So this is the main reason you're in Shurima in the first place, on top of all the good support cards. So this card is definitely an MVP. I literally, if I'm playing against TLC, like the Shadow Isle Freljord control decks, or any style of control or Targon deck, I will literally keep every single Ruin Runner in my opening hand. Even though it looks like a slow 5-drop, that's what I'll keep. And speaking of like opening hands and curves, we're going to go over what your typical curve looks like with this deck right now in the next section. Alright, so now we're going to go over the general curve of the deck. And it's very, very straightforward with this deck, and just like most mid-range decks, all you really do is just play your units on curve. So you go, ideally you go like turn 1 Omen Hawk, turn 2 Ruthless Raider, turn 3 your Xenotype Researcher, turn 4 Renekton, Ruin Runner, Wild Claw, and then, you know, turn 7 you're winning the game with like a Battle Fury. So most of the time your curves are pretty straightforward. There are times where like if you do miss your 1-drop or you miss your 2-drop, don't like worry about it. That could be good for you sometimes, especially in like the mid-range mirror matches, like if you're against Ashe Noxus, or in the mirror match or against Demacia. Sometimes it's better to, if you do end up missing your like 1 or 2 drop, so that way you have enough mana for your like Troll Chance or your Exhaust early on. And just think like, okay, if I miss my first 2 turns, that's okay, because I'll have, that'll just give me spell mana. Or like, you realize you only play 1 3-drop here. So a lot of times you'll go like, okay, I'll have my 1-drop, I'll have my 2-drop, but I'll miss my turn 3. That's okay, because missing turn 3 is actually perfect. because it gives you all of your spell mana banked. So that way on turn 4, when it's time to slam your Renekton down, you have a complete 3 spell mana, so you can do something like Ruthless Predator, Shapestone, or like Exhaust into Troll Chant for combat tricks and stuff like that. But the curves aren't actually too hard in this deck. The only thing sometimes is like on turn 6 you have to decide if you want to just slam an Alpha Wildclaw or slam Sejuani. The main difference is Alpha Wildclaw helps you push a lot more damage, whereas Sejuani is more of a like a board control style unit. On turn 4 you have to decide if you want to play Ancient Yeti or Renekton, and it's almost always Renekton, because you can slam Renekton on 4, and then on turn 5 the Yeti will only cost 3. So on turn 5 you can play like a Yeti and then a 2-drop or something like that. Like, Yeti only gets better the longer you keep it in your hand. So, unless you absolutely need that 1 extra damage on turn 4, it's always plus EV, plus value to just slam the Renekton on 4 and then get a cheaper Yeti further down the line. And then the only other one that has problems sometimes is on turn 2. You don't know if you want to play Rockhopper or Ruthless Raider. This one's actually fairly easy. If you're against a mid-range deck, Rockhopper is going to be better. If you're against a not mid-range deck, it's probably going to be Ruthless Raider. So decks like Shadow Isles and Aggro, just Rockhopper is pretty useless. But against Shadow Isle and Aggro, Ruthless Raider is really good. So that's your curve's not very anything special. It's all just pretty straightforward. So the final part here is we're just going to go over general mulligans, what you want to look for. And the general mulligans also aren't very special. You really just want to look for your early game curve, like your Omen Hawks, your Ruthless Raider. Your good mulligan is going to be like an Exhaust, Omen Hawk, Ruthless Raider, like Renekton. That's a really good opener. It gives you early game play with like your Omen Hawks and your Ruthless Raiders, as well as it gives you that good mid game with like your Renekton and your Exhaust. There are a lot of matchups where I keep Battle Fury in my opener. Sometimes I'll keep like this Ruined Runner or Renekton like a Battle Fury, and I'll have those exact matchups down in my Discord. If you guys go to the link or in the description of this video, there will be a tab that says like Discord. Join that Discord. There will be an in-depth matchup guide that tells you the exact mulligan for every single matchup, all of the tiered decks at the moment that are going to be on tier 1 and tier 2 decks. So if you want to know exactly how I mulligan versus something like TLC, make sure to go ahead and just go to my Discord, look up the matchup guide, go ahead and download it. I don't think you have to download it. I think you just open it up on Discord. Completely free. You don't have to, it's not behind like a sub paywall or anything like that. So make sure to just go check that out on Discord so you get the absolute full knowledge. You can play this deck to its best. This is the deck I'm bringing to Seasonals this weekend, so I'm risking $10,000 on this lineup. So on this deck and on my lineups. That's how you know I really, really believe in it and think it's good. So because of that, I'm excited. I think this deck is good, and I want to share it with you guys. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like if you did. Leave a comment to let me know what video you want to see next done in the Deck Guides for Dummies series. I will see you guys in the next video.